Welcome to Riding the Trauma Train, or welcome back if we've shared this space before. I'm Lydia, your host and fellow passenger in this journey of self-healing, inner strength and personal growth. This podcast is a safe, judgment-free space dedicated to the realities of living with and healing from trauma. Through personal stories and in-depth conversations with special guests, including therapists, healers, practitioners, and fellow survivors, we look at what healing can truly look like in everyday life. We explore realistic healing journeys and share simple, sustainable practices and actionable tools to support your well-being along the way. So grab your ticket, take a seat, and remember, you are not on this journey alone. Today, we are joined by the extraordinary Sheetal Story. Sheetal is a certified psychic medium, a professional certified astrologer, grief support counselor, human design business mentor, and a law of attraction master coach. While she is also also has a business degree and comes from a corporate background, her heart has always been helping people move through grief and transitions. She now teaches women to cultivate and trust their intuition, grief, self-sabotage, and life's obstacles to live a fulfilling life that aligns to their cosmic design. So grab your ticket, take a seat, and remember, you are not alone on this journey. Sheetal, thank you so much and welcome to Riding the Trauma Train.
Thank you for having me. I'm so honored that you would invite me onto this sacred space of yours. So thank you.
I do find the world and the universe so amazing because I would never have found you. I need to just tell you this story. I was sat getting my nails done and I was listening to a podcast with you on it. I know you have your own podcast, but you were a guest on Jenna Kutcher's and it was about intuition. And literally halfway through the podcast, I had to pause it, go and find out who you were, have a look at all your stuff, and then I had to go back to the episode again, which is just crazy. But your voice, the way you talk, it's just beautiful. So I am so thankful that I found you.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you for reaching out. I think it can be very hard in this space, where we are sort of feeling like maybe we're starting out or we don't have as much whatever experience, whatever it is. But I'm in awe of the women who do reach out because I think in my own personal experience, I don't do that. I would sort of say, oh my God, Lydia, she's got so much going on. And you just reached out on social media and your beautiful words, but your energy. So I live in the world of energy, obviously, and your energy spoke to me loads. And so there's a lot of people that ask me to be on their podcast and I say no, but you were a heck yes right from the beginning because I can feel your heart of service and you're here to help people come into really what trauma means for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how to heal it and how to move forward from it. And it's one of the things that I love to do, but on a spiritual level, because I know the opposite of our trauma is our purpose. And so when you reached out, I was like, yes, girl, I cannot wait to talk to you and meet you. And of course, in the DMs, I was asking you all sorts of questions about who are you? What do you do? What's your purpose? What's your mission? And everything about you was like, oh my gosh, yes, I can't wait to meet you actually in person one day, hopefully.
Yeah. That would be amazing.
But this podcast is so wonderful. I just love that you are using, pain to power and moving into your purpose because of all the things you've been through too. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. And literally, that's what I say, pain into purpose. I completely believe that I haven't been through everything I've been through in my life, especially my childhood, not to give back and not to help other people that may be a lot more stuck than what I am. So with that, I feel even more honored now that you've said that because it is a big thing to kind of put yourself out into the world and just send that message. I would like to ask you about you've just said that you generally you do say no to people. So tell me about the intuition side of it and the energy side then that you felt my energy and you thought, right, I'm going on that podcast.
I live in the world of energy. So I was born with these abilities. And I think, all of us are born with the ability to sense and feel the spaces around us. We are energetic beings experiencing this human experience. And we can take a picture of our energy. Sorry. We also, science measures our vitality. That energy that courses through our body is our vitality. And when we take our last breath, that energy ceases to exist in the body. And I know it transitions into the world of energy. And the world of energy is just here around us. There isn't some heaven or hell that are separate to this world. It's just an energetic space that we can't see, perceive, because we can only see and perceive a very small part of the energetic spectrum, right? We can only see the colors of the rainbow, but there's actually much more happening on the other sides of those, higher wavelengths and lower wavelengths that do affect us, but we're just not aware of it. And so when we are on an energetic level, we can feel people's energy. You can feel when someone walks into a room if they have good vibes or not, right? We can feel what kind of day you've had if I just tap into you and feel what kind of day you've had, right? Like that's not hard. That is something we have innately in us. But I think it's been trained out of us, especially through the Salem witch trials and like all of these things about being witchy and spirituality and religion, trying to actually snuff those pieces out from us so that we can be controlled, especially as women. And I was not brought up that way. I was brought up in a very spiritual household. I could see spirit at a very young age. My mom knew I had these gifts that actually go through my mom's side of the family. So she's a spiritual healer. So she was like, "Oh yeah, it's no problem. Just tell them to go away or tell them not to bother you." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." I knew that I had power and agency at a very young age with energy. So if spirit came to try to talk to me at night or talk to me in the daytime, I just would send them away and they would listen because we are so powerful. We live in the world of energy and physicality. That's why we're such powerful manifestors. We can direct energy to make it do what we want. Like that's powerful. And so at a very young age, I knew I had these abilities, but I'm first generation Canadian, meaning my parents are immigrants to Canada and I wanted to just fit in as any little girl
Yeah.
does, right? And so I put my abilities away and I went to university, got my degree, worked in corporate, met my amazing husband, had 2 kids. And then after my last kid, my gifts just flooded back in again. And I was like, what is happening? I seriously thought I was going crazy. I went to see psychologists. I went to see like people and they're just like, no, everything's fine. No, you're normal. Everything's good. And then I would see spiritual people and they're like, oh yeah, you're awakening to your gifts. No, this is real. No, you actually have amazing power. Like I would know things about people that there was no way I should know about them. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, what is this? And then it just led me down this path of meeting all these people. But one thing I learned, especially because a lot of people came to me as a psychic medium with grief and sadness, that I'm like, I need to have tools in my toolkit to actually help people in a way that doesn't harm, right? Because our industry is do no harm. And so I went into becoming a trauma trained grief counselor. And then I went into psychology classes and all sorts of certifications to then understand the psychology side of trauma. And it's the psychology side of intuition. And I was blown away when I found out that intuition is actually a trauma response. That if you've had a lot of trauma in your life, you have a killer intuition and you're likely also a highly sensitive person or an empath, which can seem kind of cruel, right? That you're going
Mm.
through all these hardships and yet you feel everything so deeply. But actually, it's a safety mechanism because you're outside of yourself. Think of it as like tentacles going into everyone in your life to make sure everyone's okay, that no one is angry, that no one is having any kind of issues with anything so that you don't have to manage that. So think of if you have, my dad was very angry. Growing up, he had a lot of anger issues. And then later in life, he was diagnosed with ADHD. And then he found meditation. He's like such a different man now than he was when I was a kid. But that anger created a volatile home, which then I had to really make sure when the door closed, what kind of mood was my dad in? Or what kind of mood then would my mom be set off in because then they'd be arguing. And so I became extremely intuitive because I had to, right? To kind of understand when I could go downstairs or when I could share something that was hard with my family or maybe not, right? So it was that piece that I was like, oh my gosh, everyone with killer intuition has gone through trauma. And I was like, oh my gosh, how much of the world have these abilities and these gifts, but then also are suppressing it because the church says it's bad or it suppresses because it's the devil, and it's not. It is actually our innate gift from God. So how can that be bad? It blows my mind how many stories are spun to try to prevent us from actually stepping into our truest power, especially as women. So intuition is actually the ability to tap into the world around us on an energetic level to tell if we're okay, if someone's okay. And then of course, our mind from a subconscious level is always caching everything around us, right? So from a conscious level, you're only 20% conscious of what the brain is taking in. 80% of what we take in from the world around us is stored in the subconscious. So when we think about, especially if you're neurodivergent, so if you have ADHD or autism, when you step into a room where there's a lot going on, your brain processes information so much faster. So you can tell something's not right in the room, but you might not understand what it is yet because it's kind of stored in the subconscious, not the conscious mind. And then all of a sudden this man steps forward from the crowd that looks like your abuser, and you're like, "Oh, okay.
Mm.
I get it." But the peripheral vision already clocked it, but you didn't quite consciously clock it yet. Or you can tell somebody doesn't feel right. Like oftentimes in like these active shooter type of situations, or mass awful things that happen, there's always people that say afterwards, something didn't feel right. Right, I didn't want to get
Mm.
on that plane, I didn't want to go to that concert, like something didn't feel right, but it didn't make logical sense, so I just went, and then here it is, right?
Mm.
So we always know, whether we can acknowledge it or not, that there's something not quite right about a situation. And if we're really tapped into that energetic world and give ourselves permission to do so, how much more information is available to us to make wise decisions in our lives? So we need the brain, of course. We can't just be like, oh, intuition, I just want to run down the street and give my money away to everybody naked, like that's not going to help us out. We need the brain. The brain is here to keep us safe. And so that is important, but we cannot put the brain first. We need to put our spirit first. So I'm sure you've heard mind, body, spirit. It actually should be spirit, body, mind, right? So it's the spirit first, and understanding what the spirit is telling you. Is this a yes or a no? Does this feel aligned for me? What's not right in this situation? Or the nudge is taking me to Nepal, and I'm like, I don't understand why I need to go to Nepal, but I got to follow that nudge. Then we bring the body into it. Okay, how can I keep my body safe in Nepal? Or so I got to go and get all the right equipment. And then the mind. Okay, now how do we financially make this happen? What does this look like actually practically moving steps in? The mind isn't here to say, no, we can't go to Nepal. The mind is here to say, how can we go to Nepal with safety? Right? So that is how spirit, body, mind operates. But we are so conditioned to be mind, body, spirit. And when you have a lot of trauma in your life, the mind takes over, especially if you have sexual trauma. So you're not safe in the body. So we will then automatically go to the mind first to keep us safe. And then we prioritize the mind over the spirit. I think one of the things I love about being a woman is that midlife is about stripping away all of those layers of crap that aren't yours, the conditioning, the mud that's just been kind of projected upon you. And our brain actually rewires itself during menopause and perimenopause to sort of say, I no longer need these neurons that are here to people please and take care of everyone else's needs at the expense of myself. And then we go through a massive identity shift. So if you understand spirituality and you understand astrology and you understand also the psychology behind and biology of menopause and midlife, then you'll understand that it's not a psychotic episode. You're actually going through a rebirth. You are actually stripping away everything that is no longer aligned. So instead of the midlife breakdown, it's actually the midlife rebirth. So
Yeah, I
it's
love
a long
that.
answer.
No, no, I love it. Because you're right. When I know there's so many of my friends that have started perimenopause, and it is literally people are like, yeah, she's gone a bit funny. She's stopped doing this, she's stopped doing that. She's having a midlife crisis, is what they say in the UK. But actually, once they start listening to themselves, it is like an awakening, because it's like, well, actually, I didn't ever want to do ABC. I wanted to do DEF, and I'm going to do DEF because I now no longer care. And I think it's so empowering as women to listen to our intuition, and it's that gut feeling, isn't it? People say you get a gut feeling, and it's really empowering. But it's what you've said then is really interesting, the whole trauma relationship to intuition, because I've always walked in the room and had the gut feeling, or with other women that have been through what I've been through. I always say it's like an energy. I'm drawn towards them. And it's just, I still find it bizarre, but it does make sense now that you've said that, because if you marry the two of them up, I am generally outside of my body a lot more, as in my mind, than my mind. Yeah, it's kind of circles back to how I'm feeling, how they're feeling, and it's kind of bounces back off of each other. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I think this is why women are predominantly the ones that are diagnosed with autoimmune disorders, because we are so busy managing everybody else's energy in our body that our body's like, we can't handle this anymore because we know energy is held in the body. So we have three intelligence available to us at all times, right? The first one that we're all aware of is the brain, right? And the brain's only job is to keep us safe. It's to keep this body safe, right? So it'll always make sure that it's risk averse. It wants to create things that are certain. Of course, we know there's no such thing as certainty in life, but it will act on the past as certainty. So we know 9 times out of 10, when we cross a crosswalk, when the light is proper and it says to cross, we're going to be safe. So we're going to follow those rules. So the brain always wants to create more of the past, but our future is not created with more of the past. Our future is created because we have a nudge, we have a desire, we have something that doesn't make sense to anybody else. That doesn't come from the mind. So when we start to create our life based on the mind, we start to create an empty life. And we often see at midlife women being like, this life doesn't fulfill me anymore. And that's okay. It's actually supposed to not fulfill you anymore. So I've never met a woman that after especially 45, 50, that's like, I love everything I'm still doing. Like it's actually, I want to do something different, or I'm
Yeah.
ready to retire, or I'm thinking about retirement, thinking about traveling, thinking about a new relationship because this one's no longer fulfilling me, or my man's not evolving with me, or woman's not evolving with me. And I want somebody who is going to. So we resist being put into a cage because we are trying to evolve. But the people who try to keep us in that cage will eventually exit our life because we are no longer desiring to live under other people's rules. Then the second intelligence we have is the body. The body's only job is to keep us alive. So under odd circumstances, it will keep us alive against all odds, right? You can deprive it of water and food. I mean, there's a point where, it will die, but it will actually start to become more efficient. If you've ever researched fasting for women, you have to go according to your menstrual cycles, but it actually makes the body more efficient. So it'll break down bacteria and toxins and things that are no longer working at a higher rate when it's under fasting conditions. And that body is actually built to heal itself under optimal conditions. So if you give the optimal conditions to your body, it will take care of itself. I have a client whose dad, you might have heard this one on the podcast you listened to, but her dad had stage 4 cancer. He was passing away. And she said, I think it's time. And I was like, yeah, it's definitely time. Because I can sort of feel when the spirit is about to exit. And like, if there's a window of time that usually we have to exit our body. And so I said, yeah, I do believe he's in transition already. And she's like, oh, good, because he's been so sick. We're withdrawing care. And I said, okay, that's perfect. If there's anything I can do, let me know. And she called me 4 days later and she's like, my dad is still not dead. Like, what is that, Sheetal? What is he waiting for? And I said, I tapped into spirit and I was like, he's waiting for your mom. He's waiting for your mom to give him permission to go. And she's like, that's crazy. They've been divorced for over 25 years. Like, why would he be waiting for that? I said, I don't know. That's a question for your dad. But I can feel that he's waiting to see your mom. And she's like, oh, I'm going to have to work a miracle with this one. So she called her mom and her mom's like, yeah, I'll come, whatever. Like, it was so in the past for her. She didn't even know that he would be, why. And she came to his bedside and she's like, it's time for you to go. I forgive you for everything. It all worked out the way it was supposed to. And I don't hold any ill will. Like, it's time for you now to go. And she left the room to talk to the doctor and he took his last breath and passed away. And so the
Right.
body will stay alive as long as it needs to finish some important life lessons. And I'll also say that towards the end of our lifetime, sometimes our life lessons are not for our own. Right. I have a
Okay.
client as well whose dad went into a coma and she's like, okay, Sheetal, I think he's going to pass. And I said, I don't think so. I actually feel it's going to be a few more months. She's like, Sheetal, he's in a coma. His kidneys are failing. I'm like, no, but it's not going to, I can feel his vitality is still very strong. He does not want to leave yet. And she's like, oh, okay, Sheetal, I don't know about that. And she's a clinical psychologist. So she's like, meh, I don't know about the spirit stuff. And then she called me next week and she's like, okay, Sheetal, it's wild. His kidneys came online and his doctor said he's super healthy and he came out of his coma. I was like, yeah. And because he had advanced Alzheimer's, he wasn't really there. And I said, now it's not about him anymore. It's his life. He's here for life lessons for other people in the family. And I talked to her about some of the dynamics within the family that I was becoming aware of. So I said, your job is to just stay out of it and to be a neutral third party to all of it. And she's like, okay. And she called me a month later and texted me a month later. And she's like, Sheetal, everything you said came to true as exactly as you said. And then around Christmas, she said, I think it's his time. I said, yes, I think it's his time too. And he passed away. So, the body is it's here to be your vessel, right? And it is so powerful. It will try to heal itself and keep yourself here as long as possible. So that intelligence, it's always telling you what it likes to wear, right? And don't wear that itchy wool sweater. That's yucky. I break out in hives every time I wear that. Or your body, when you're in a relationship that doesn't serve you, your menstrual cycle will start to go weird. You'll start to get sick in your stomach. Like there's weird things that happen when you're around people that aren't good for you. Your body will tell you that, right? Your body has such intelligence. But if, again, we're not safe to be in the body, then we will be in the mind and we'll miss those cues. So, especially in midlife, what happens too is our digestive system is changing, our bodies are shifting. So, we're starting to become more aware of what our body needs. And we then have to tap back into that. And you can't be in your intuition if you're not in your body. So,
Mm.
being intuition development is actually healing, being it safe to be in the body, especially after trauma. And then the third intelligence is our spirit. It's the energy that animates our entire being. And that energy is lifetimes of knowledge and wisdom. And it also has a roadmap in which it wants to experience things in this lifetime. But we have free will. So we can do whatever we want. We can make decisions in whatever ways we want. But there's circumstances in life that kind of limit those decisions. So, for example, for me, I'm literally allergic to everything in nature. I am allergic to dust, to trees, to flowers, to pollen, mold, all those things. I will never be a landscaper, right? I will never work outdoors. My girlfriends and, being spiritual, there's a lot of nature-y stuff that happens. I'm in a hotel room, where they're tenting it. So I'm not meant to experience spirituality. And I understand I'm nature, but I don't really enjoy I love watching nature. I have this beautiful picture window here that I'm looking out onto a winter scene because it's wintertime right now. That is not going to be my life path to do things in nature. And my circumstances of my body has shown me that. So yes, we have potential to do anything, but we also, because of our upbringing and the things that we've been through, we are also, the opportunities are limited to us based on what we believe to be true. So, for example, going to university, my parents raised me that you're going to go to university. We've got a scholarship trust fund for you. You're going to go right from high school to university. There's no gap year for you. I was like, oh, okay. That's what I'm supposed to do. That's what I'm supposed to do. I went into university. My brother, who's 5 years younger than me, no expectation of that. And his life has actually led him into television and film. So he was not meant to go to university. He didn't love high school at all. He actually struggled. And his life path, my parents did not ever say that. Even though they saved up money for him to do that, they never fed that to him. Because my journey, I needed to get a degree to open all the doors that I needed to open down the road. And I have a business degree. So it's really interesting when we start to see life from these three different intelligence, right? And remember, the hierarchy has got to be your spirit, your body, your mind.
That's amazing. It's what is scary is the fact that you think that as somebody that has been through trauma, I am in my mind more than I am in my body and my spirit. 100%. I can guarantee that my mind is what's on overdrive all the time. And I wanted to touch base with you on the subject of that. So thinking of your coming into your own intuition, moving through, because I know you talk about authenticity and connection, and how obviously when you have this path that you're going. I do find it funny that you can't be in nature when you are such a spiritual person. However, not funny that you have allergies. But in other terms, with your brother, obviously you've both led two different paths. Well, for me, I've led a path of didn't have a great. I had my childhood trauma, but from that I have developed. Every step of my journey has been to the next path. But I know that you say that there is, when you go through something as a child, there is a connection and an authenticity that kind of disbalances, that's not even a word, unbalances it.
Yes, I know what you're saying. So in childhood, we have two needs. We have the need for connection So we need to be connected to our caregivers. We need our caregivers to love us. Otherwise, we'll die, right? Babies are absolutely helpless at birth. And so we really need our caregivers to think we're cute, to want to take care of us. So there's a lot of hormones in the woman's body that after she gives birth, there's this connection that's made. And then even some of the cells of the baby stays in the woman's body so that we will always recognize our children. And we also have a little bit of them that we carry with them. And of course, half our DNA is in our children too. So there's that, sometimes they look like us, sometimes they don't, but and even in the early stages of development for babies, they'll start to mimic you because the brain is learning. And so we often think that's so cute. We stick out our tongue and they're sticking out their tongue back at us. But actually, that's a safety mechanism built into the biology of the brain to make sure that we are mimicking our caregivers. We're learning how to be in this tribe from them. So we belong. So that sense of belonging is such a fundamental need to our survival as a species based back in, the hunter-gatherer days. And then we also have this need for authenticity, to be ourselves, to be witnessed as who we are, right? For how different we are from our family, and then even our unique talents and gifts and our own personality. But if your authenticity damages connection or challenges connection in some way, so I'm going to be funny. So I had a client, one of my coaching clients, she, at a very young age, what came up in her coaching session is that she was up for promotion at work. And she had a really hard time sort of standing out, right? She's always trying to be like everybody else. She doesn't want to, rock the boat at all. She was really scared of that. And I said, why can't you be your authentic self? Because she's actually very smart, super brilliant woman. And she can see issues, but she won't highlight them or bring them to management. She just will assume somebody else will do it. So I said, what is that about? And she's like, because I don't want to be a bother. And I said, that's an interesting statement. I've never really, you don't hear, you can hear sometimes when I can always hear, I pattern recognize very easily. I can hear when things don't sound right, like something is a trauma. So I was like, I don't want to be a bother. Where did you learn that you were a bother? And I was like, her eyes glazed over and she's like, I was 5 years old. We went to a family gathering and I was funny and I was laughing. I had a skirt on, but I was like lifting up my skirt and laughing and everyone was laughing with me. And my dad took me out to the car and gave me a spanking and said, stop misbehaving. You're embarrassing us. And I had to sit in the car for 5 minutes by myself to think about what I had done. And then I came back to the party and she said, and I was a different person after that because I didn't want to be an embarrassment to myself or other people. And I'm like, oh. There it is, right? Inner child healing. So as we brought back that part of her and she got to rewire that part of her brain that said, I'm a bother when I am acting up or acting out, whatever the acting out means. But really, in this instance, it was preventing her from a promotion and money and accolades in her business. And when she brought back, we did the healing for that and brought her back to wholeness. And she got a promotion within the next month. So it's wild. We think a lot of times this, authenticity and connection are two things we greatly need. But as children, we will give up authenticity for connection every time because we can't live without connection. We can live without authenticity, right? And then it's really our lives, especially as women, but also men go through this too, is that we have to reclaim that authenticity, that we are who we're supposed to be. We came here to be different. You're not here to fit in. Now look at your beautiful red hair. Obviously, you came here to stand out, right? It is like, I wished as a little girl, I used to say, if I could have red hair, I would.
I need to be completely honest. This is out of a box.
Does not even matter. You wear it so well, girl.
I love red. I'm never going back to brunette. I have been this for 2 years, but I do my eyebrows as well. That's why.
It looks great. You wear it well. Like I said, I would love to do that. But like you're here, I think this is interesting too, right? In the last 2 years, what has changed for you?
Yes, I do know. Yeah. Well, one, my abuser died. Two, I am finding myself. So I'm obviously a redhead.
This is a reclamation, right? You are here to be authentic. And especially when your abuser has passed away, that hiding or not, you're not feeling safe. A lot of times I hear from my clients, that's how they'll put on weight. That's how they'll just dress in black. That's why they just want to fit into the crowd, be the wallflowers that just fit in with the wallpaper. And you're not here to be like that. You are here to stand out. The universe thought that we need a beautiful person to fill in this role and to be at this time in history. And that's why why you're here. Not just you, Lydia, but everyone who's listening. You have such a purpose and a mission to be here. And I think this is what gets me fired up. This is my mission, is to help women step into their authentic self, to listen to their intuition, to heal those things that keep them from their authentic expression so that they can live the life they came here to live. And so that's why I love tools like astrology and human design, because they show us our authentic self, our roadmap back to ourself, in essence, because it's not programming. It's not the Myers-Briggs or what's the Enneagram, right? You're taking those questions and you're answering them from the place of who you are. So it's actually showing you your conditioned self. It's not showing your authentic self. I can make that test say anything I want. I was like, these tests suck. And so when I learned about astrology and human design, I was like, you can't cheat on this test, right? Like, this is based on your birth time. And it's so accurate, right? When you understand how these tools work, it's unbelievable. Every time I do an astrology or human design session for someone, they're like, oh my God, it's like you see me. And I'm like, I literally see your soul as well. So there's that. But also that your design is who you're truly here to be. And when I give you permission to be yourself by reading your chart, you're like, yes, this is me. I'm going to be this person now. But then we run up against that roadblock of, when I'm this person, now I have to deal with the consequences of that. And I won't be loved. I won't belong. It's always that belonging piece, worthiness. We hear all these terms, right? Worthiness. And I don't feel like I belong, or I can't be seen, heard. And it actually means I can't be authentically myself.
And you don't have that connection. So the two of them together just makes sense. Thank you for bringing that up. Can we have a little dive into the human design and astrology type side of things? And with that, I have a really profound question. And it is, with everything that people go through, every kind of trauma that they go through, how does the human design and the astrology element kind of weave into it? Because there are a lot of bad things in this world, and there are a lot of things that happen to a lot of people. How do you weave that in from something that was meant to happen?
Mm-hmm. So human design is really a personal development tool that shows you how you're authentically designed to operate. And there's gates. So when you were born, the planets are at specific gates in the human design world. And those gates come with traits and characteristics. And each gate can express in its highest wisdom its okay form or its lowest shadow. And if you start to go into your gates and traits, you start to see, here's where I'm in my shadow a lot. Here's where I have seen the highest wisdom, and here's where I operate more. So it's almost like your potential. It's your guide of your potential. I love human design calls itself the science of differentiation, which is the science of authenticity, right? So I love that piece. It shows you how you're meant to operate. Now, astrology is the energies that make up your life, your social characteristics, your body. And then it also is a map of how your life evolves, because each year of your life, your chart is progressing. So we have a natal chart, which is your birth chart. And then each year you have a progress chart. So I'm 48. So for my 48th year of life, these are I'm going to see energies and themes that are going to be presenting, but I have free will to express them in the way that I want. So let's say I'm up for a trip abroad, and I can say yes to the trip, or I can say no to the trip. The trip is not inevitable, right? I get to have say. And so then we have the transits, which are the planets in the sky as they're interacting with our charts. So those then create events and catalysts of events of things that are going to happen in our life. So I can look at a chart and I can see the trauma you've had as a child, right? Sexual trauma is very obvious. Father-mother issues, very obvious. So as I was learning about astrology, so it took me 6 years to certify under the society that I am part of, which is called the International Society for Astrological Research, ISAR. And I was taking up charts. We were looking at progress charts. So as you get older, and my teacher was showing us, and I was doing all my family. So I had my 2 kids. I have an older son and a younger son, and then I have my husband. And so I was looking at all the charts, and in my younger son's chart, at the age of 12, there was a massive shift. We call it a Uranus change directions. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, what is this? What is this? And my teacher was like, well, it's a marker for like running away, getting pregnant, change of identity in some way, rebelliousness. So you just got to stay close to your child during that time and see what happens. I was like, got it. We were very, very close. And at that time in his life, he actually came out as transgender. And I could not have seen that. Like, I would not have predicted that at all. I was like, wow. Okay. Okay. So you're a boy. Yeah. Okay. You identify as a boy. And so he's identified as a boy. Actually, it started earlier on, like at 10 years old, and now 16. He's been a boy for 6 years, 6 years. He knew he was a boy at that age. So I always like our kids to feel loved and supported. And we supported their journeys no matter what. So that was part of that. So astrology showed me that something was coming, but I didn't know what. I just knew it was going to be a profound year of change. So what I love about astrology is that it can show us these like pulls and pushes, these pressures in our life, and also themes and characteristics for the years to come, but it cannot tell you definitively what is going to happen. It will say to you, there's a high propensity for this. I had a client who came in, a healthy, young, such a beautiful man in our spiritual world, and he was 45, super fit, went to the gym 7 times a week. He was boxing and mentoring other young men and stuff too. And in his chart, I said, there is an aspect this year of health unwellness. I can see that. It's like really jumping out to me. I really want you to get your heart checked. And he's like, oh, you should tell him. I'm super fit. I have no cholesterol issues. I'm like, I don't, okay, if something comes up and you have a palpitation or something, I just want you to go to the doctor right away. Like, don't wait, right? Don't wait. I know men especially will just wait. And he died of a heart attack that year, 45 years old. And I
Wow.
was like, it's crazy. I'd forgotten that I had told him that because that was sort of the year prior. And friends of ours were cleaning out his stuff. And she messaged me and she's like, Sheetal, look it. She took a picture of the chart and sent it. And I said, health issues, heart, get your heart checked. I wrote it on his chart. She's like, how did you know? And I'm like, I didn't predict the time of his death. I didn't even think he would die. Like, it was like, I thought he
You
would
just
just have a
knew that
heart
there
attack,
was going to be a heart
something with his heart.
issue. Yeah.
So, and it's
Wow.
interesting because the story of his passing is quite tragic because he felt something was wrong and he went to the hospital. He's Indigenous and they turned him away. And he went home and his mom's like, no, I want you to go to the hospital. Something's wrong. And on his way to the hospital, he passed away in his car. So, like, was it meant to be in this way? I mean, I have to believe that it was, and was there a system that was corrupt and everything that then became a catalyst? His passing everything has meaning in spirituality. So his passing has meaning in that there was a report that was done, that there was an investigation that was done. His family, escalated it as well. And he also left this world. But spiritually, he was supporting so many of us with sons that were going through tough times during that COVID period. So it's wild. I mean, you look back and you can connect all the dots after the fact. But when you're in deep grief, when you're mad, when you're going through all the emotions that grief brings up, it's not the time to be like, oh, I see why this is happening.
Yeah.
It's not the time. I would never bring that
No.
up to someone in acute grief, but it is the time to just be with the grief, right? To heal that piece. So I think as a society, we have a lot of unhealed grief that we are seeing from COVID, from past, from generational trauma that has to be healed. I mean, even your abuser, that person didn't come out of the womb like that. Something created that person to become that way. And that society, like, well, how can we prevent that from happening so that beautiful, people are not affected by that? So yeah, this work is vast. And I'm just so glad that, women like you are waking up and I need help. Like, come
Yeah.
on, let's step into this work.
Can't do this alone.
No.
Yeah, it's that's so surreal. And I've always said that it's the same saying, everything happens for a reason, but there is so much depth that comes with things that happen to us, that actually you do need to listen. You need to listen to that. I'm just really intrigued about the stars aligning and um spirit. I'm a little bit flabbergasted. That's the word I'm going to use, because I'm just in awe of everything that you've just said and actually trying to process it, because there's a lot to take in. The fact that one can see things, like, I know you've said you're a psychic medium. Does that have any effect on what you're seeing as an astrologer, or do they intertwine? Can you work with them both, or could you do both separately, if that makes
Yes. Yes, it does. I'll address your question in a moment, but I want to go back to something you said
Okay.
that I learned in my all of my certifications was actually quite damaging. So I've been really working to see we can rewire that in the world. And it's the question, it's the everything happens for a reason.
Mm.
Because when we look at reason, reason looks to the past as to why this happened. And why asserts blame. So when we look to the past to see why did this happen, we don't know why. I just do wonderful people have shitty things happen to them? Like, we won't understand that until later in our life, or maybe never at all until you take your last breath. But that opportunity is a different word that looks to the future to see what can I do with this now. So everything happens for an opportunity is much more open and like curiosity driven than the why of the past, right? Everything happens for a reason. What's the reason? And my eyes were open to this. I was taking my meditation teacher training when I was first coming out of like learning that I was a psychic. And someone said to me, you need to get your mind under control, go take meditation. So I was like, okay. So I went and did the meditation. So like, I need to be a meditation teacher. So then went for the certification. I'm a certificationaholic because I'm a people pleaser recovering. And so I had I went to my meditation teacher training, and the teacher asked a question, and I said, "Well, everything happens for a reason." And she said, "I'm going to reframe that for you. That everything happens for an opportunity, because something is meant to come from this. So, what is that? We can be in the curiosity of what's going to come from this. What's the future versus why of the past. When we're sitting in the past, we're sitting in the blame." And I was like, I doubled down. I was like, "No, I think everything happens for a reason." And I was so stubborn. And then at the break, a lady came over to me who became a very good friend. And she said, "Can I share something with you that might help you think about things a little differently?" And I was like, "Yes, please." She said, "When I was 12, my mom committed suicide. And at her funeral, everyone said to me, everything happens for a reason." And she said, my mind was like, I'm the reason. I'm the reason. I was not good enough. She was overwhelmed by me. I was too much. And she said, I lived under that jail, that prison for so long, that cage of that I need to do better and I need to repent for my mother's passing. And then someone said to me, no, everything happens for an opportunity. Your mom's passing at a young age. Maybe that's meant to drive you into mental health and wellness so this never happens again for any other 12-year-old. Maybe now you get to heal that and understand that in your life, you also are predisposed to being depressed and that you need to heal yourself so that this doesn't affect any future generations for you. She became a psychologist and she runs it's for mental wellness here for women and mental wellness. Every year she runs the marathon in memory of her mother and donates to charity. So, like, she has made it purposeful and meaningful because there was an opportunity that came from it, not sitting in the why of why this happened. We know that people take their lives because of deep depression, because of a mental illness that cannot be medicated as much as they try. Sometimes it just not doesn't work for them, or the trauma is too great. And so, to combat that, we really need to then look at these alternative therapies. But I'm just going to say that everything happens for an opportunity is really so much more trauma informed because
Mm.
it's then asking people to think about what's the opportunity that was supposed to come of this. Like, what can I make meaning of this in a way that feels purposeful and honoring of what happened to me rather than sitting in the blame and the victimness of the past, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I
Mm.
absolutely love that because you say it for so long, but actually, even though you tried to believe it, you're like, did how can you believe something like that? Like, yeah, you just can't. I think that is now ingrained and coined in my head. Everything happens for an opportunity. I love that's just so eye opening and heart opening because actually, so many things that we know that there would be no reason for that to happen. But look at
Especially
where we
to
are now.
children, right? Especially to children and good
Hmm.
people and what's happening in, worlds around, countries around the world where just horrible things are happening to innocent people. Like there's no reason. I mean, a reason is greed, but I mean, I don't want to get into that, but, I think it's the opportunity. Yeah, whole other podcast, but opportunity is kind of opens our mind to what's possible. And so coming back to your original question about energy and astrology and how they kind of mesh together, right? So when we think about astrology, astrology is really that at the time of your birth, the energy coming onto this planet, and we know we're energetic beings having this human experience. And energy, we live in a world of energy. That's science. That's not wooey, right? Everything, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It is, we are energy as well. So when we are born, the energy that comes onto this planet at the times of our first breath is encapsulated in us, and that becomes our energetic signature. We all have a different vibration from each other, and we all have different experiences. We have different bodies, all the things. So that energy signature is what we can see in your human design chart, and it's what we can see in your astrology chart. So I like to think of that as that you are an energetic being, obviously. And these two modalities are showing the energies of who you are and what makes you up. You're a very dynamic person. It can't just be your sun sign. It's also, there's the moon and there's 10 other planets we look at. And then there's asteroids and all that if you want to get deeper into it. So it's a nuanced chart and you have to learn how to read it. We can't just look at compatibilities in magazines and be like, yeah, that doesn't jive with me. Of course it doesn't, because it's so generic, right? So excuse me. So when we think about then being a psychic, I can see energy. I can feel energy. I am clairvoyant. So I do see energy around people. I see clouds of energy. I see colors around people. I can see symbols and signs. That then astrology is then the reading of your energy and what's happening for you. So as a psychic, if you go to a really good reputable psychic, what they can do, all they're doing is what you're doing with your friends, is they're just tapping into your energy and they can feel what's happening in your field, what you're most concerned about, what you're going through, what you're feeling like in this moment. So when you go to a psychic, and this is where I want to scream this from the rooftops, is a psychic isn't telling you your future. A psychic is telling you what you've been thinking about and give you permission to go after your dreams. So I went to a psychic and I like to go every now and again just to see what happens. And she's like, "You're thinking about going to LA." And I said, "Yes." She's like, "I feel like you're going to have a television show there." I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." And she said, "And I think you're going to be traveling from there to here." Has it happened yet? No. But I was going to LA because there was a conference that I was in that was in LA. And then I was also starting a podcast at that time. So was she seeing the show being the
Yeah.
podcast in LA and combining the two things together? That's a possibility, but it's not my job to think that that's truth. My job as the recipient is to vet it and be discerning with how I use that information. So I think a lot of times, and I think in the UK, there's a lot of legislation around psychic mediums of what they can and cannot do, and then liability, which I love that. We don't have that here, that I can't tell somebody to go off their meds. Like I have a psychology friend who's a certified psychologist. And when we first met, she was a little skeptical of me. And she's like, "Meh." And then when she found out I'm trauma trained and all the things and the way that I was speaking, she's like, "God, Sheetal, like you're so different than anyone else I've ever met that said they were psychic." I was like, "Yes, I get that a lot." And she said, "I actually had a client who was on meds for depression and anxiety, and a psychic told her to go off her meds that she could heal herself. And she jumped off the bridge and committed suicide and left behind children and a family." And she said, "And I was so mad after that." I said, "I'm so sorry that you have gone through that and someone's negligence has, like, I would never tell anyone to go off their meds. Or I
No.
would never tell anyone to leave their job and go, like safety first." And I think that's from my trauma training as well. It's like, we need to have safety first. Yes, this new job is coming in, but I want you to update your resume. I want you to go on LinkedIn. I want you to do all these and get your references together. Go apply for the job, but keep going to your job too,
Hmm.
because this is not certain. As much as I think it's going to be certain, it's not certain. Like you have to go for the interview to get the job. So, I think there's a whole world there of energy and healers and a lot of charlatans that I really want to work to change this industry and also change the standard in which we're accepting this is like, okay, this is not okay. No one should tell you these things. And a trauma trained person won't tell you these kind of things. Yeah. So coming back to your original question, it's all energy. And as an astrologer, I would say astrologers are also very intuitive, but I think the astrology community has really worked to separate themselves from psychics because they have such a nasty reputation. And astrologers see themselves as data based. This is a 2,400 years old practice that they have refined and have standards with, and they don't want to muddy that with psychics. So we purposely keep those two things separate, but I will say to you that we're all intuitive. So a really good astrologer will also be able to kind of pick up on your energy and vibes too.
I think that is really, really interesting because you've got to have some kind of intuition in order to be able to kind of feel what you're looking at as well, haven't you? So
Yes.
that's how I think I'm thinking about it.
You're
Um,
right in that I'm gonna just pause you for a moment, is that I've read 2 sets of twins, and they have the exact same chart because the house cusp change every 4 minutes, and they were born 2 minutes apart. So they had the exact same chart, but yet they were opposites in every way. So if I was just reading that chart generically, I would not describe either one of them. I have to use my intuition to also sort of say, like, this chart expresses itself like this for you, but it expresses itself this way for your sister. Does that make sense? And she's like, how did you know? I was like, because I'm feeling your sister as part of this reading too. So that you're exactly right. So thank you. Continue.
no, no, that's fine. So when you were talking earlier, we were also talking about grief, and it's the funny thing is that when I said about everything happens for a reason, you used the word. I'm going to reframe that for you. Now, I said to you just before we started recording that I recorded a solo episode this morning, but the solo episode was about trauma healing and the grief that comes with it and how to reframe your brain. So my head's been going off like, oh my gosh, literally, I recorded that this morning. Healing, trauma. I'm grieving that identity. I'm grieving this identity. So yeah, I just wanted to put that point out there. It wasn't a question. It was just
And it's in your auric field because you just did it. So I was
mhm.
probably tapping into that as well. So this will be a wonderful progression from that episode as well. So, so perfect. I love it.
Yay. Um, so my question is on the back of that is how do you support somebody that does go through identity grief and they don't know whether their response to what they're going through is trauma informed or intuition? How can you work with them to do that or how can they work with themselves?
Okay, so there's sort of 2 things there that you're talking
Yeah,
about.
sorry.
One is the identity piece, and one is then understanding intuition versus fear, right?
Yeah.
So, because every woman is gonna go through identity grief and identity shifts in midlife. It is just part of our DNA. We're meant to take on a different role after we're no longer childbearing years, right? So, all of us are gonna go through identity shifts, and I think I'm noticing, I think there's a shift in my purpose as well, is to help women going through that because there's so much more purpose in midlife. 42.5% of our life is post-menopausal. 42.5% of our lifespan now, average lifespan as women, are post-menopausal. So we are here to do more than just have babies, right?
Yeah.
We're here to carry on and have more purpose and meaning and be the leaders of the future for those that are coming up through the ranks. So there is going to be an identity crisis. And yes, to it, the rebirth is here of the divine feminine. We need to step into our gifts and talents after our menopausal years. And that's okay. That's how we're wired to be. So we're all going to go through identity grief. And it's about being compassionate with yourself to understand that we're not meant to have one identity for our entire lives. Think of yourself in your 20s and then in your 30s and your 40s. Like your values aren't even the same. So your identity is not meant to be the same. We are meant to shift. And I think society likes us to be these good little girls forevermore so they can then depend on us and we can do everything for the family. Like death to the people pleaser and the woman who has to do everything for her whole family, right? No more. So I'm sure that's hitting somebody right now, especially if you're ethnic. You're going to feel that in your bones because we are expected as ethnic women to carry on the family, to do culturally what's right, to take care of everybody. And that is a surefire ticket to illness. So we cannot do that anymore. So identity crisis, that's going to happen. Healers, therapy, grief counseling, go do it and bring a healthy dose of self compassion and an understanding that you are meant to evolve. It's okay. Everything in your life is not going to feel the same all the time, right? And that can be relationships, that can be your career, that can be things that you've worked your whole life for. All of a sudden doesn't feel right anymore. That's okay. You're not going crazy. You're actually evolving and you're allowed to. You're allowed. I'm giving you permission here and now to evolve. You can do that. How can you do that with safety, with kindness, with compassion for yourself and everyone else in your life? Because let's say your partner might be waking up and you're all of a sudden this different person. I'm like, what happened to the woman I married? Right. And so it's okay. We can go together. We can allow that to come together. And if someone's not able to meet you there, it's okay. We can say goodbye. Right. So there's that piece. Now, the second piece is the intuition and fear. So I like to think of it as we feel them differently in our body, right? And again, if you're not okay with feeling things in your body, I think of intuition as expansive and fear as compressive or restrictive or like small. It makes you small, right? Fear like kind of crits everything together. Whereas if you are in an intuition, if you're in a like a nudge, this inspiration of something, it can feel a little scary, but it feels like an exciting scary, right? It's not like this, oh God, I can't do this, right? It's what if I could do that? What if I could do this? I'll give you an example. I have a business coaching client, and her whole life, she's had this feeling that she wants to create celebration for others. And she's had this kind of hope on her heart, right? But she went to school. She's from a good Italian family, right? She went to school, became a teacher, was in the teaching system, loved it. The kids loved her. The system started to change and she didn't like it anymore. She was in the US. And so she's like, I can't do this anymore. So she quit her job and went into selling textbooks. So then she was selling textbooks. And everyone's like, you're leaving this lucrative career. You're in the school system. And she's like, I can't do it anymore. It doesn't make sense to anyone else, but she knew she couldn't do it anymore. That was her intuition, not fear, because fear would have kept her in the job. Make sense?
Hmm.
So then she went to sell textbooks. Then she was top salesperson, loved it, whatever. But she's like, I don't really love textbooks. Went into wine, started selling wine and became a sommelier and learned, especially her love was of bubbly. And then she had this like seed of a dream that started to build. I want to build my own bubbly wine bar where people could come in, just have a little taster flight. There's no seating. You just come in, you have some wine and you celebrate with me. And every day is a day for celebrating something in life because she was not celebrated as a child. This purpose trauma, huh? See how they're connected?
Hmm.
But
Yep.
she didn't get put those two together until we started to work together. I was like, well, so your purpose is opposite of trauma. So obviously you weren't celebrated as a child. And she's like, how did you know? I was like, this is it, right? I can tell for you too that you weren't listened to as a child. So you want to now give voice to all of these things so it can be out in the world and women can feel listened to, right?
Yes.
I'll see you. So
Absolutely.
so she opened up her first ever concept. No one else was doing it, bubbly wine bar. And she just crossed the 1 year mark. And I think she hit over $250,000 in sales. And she's built this amazing family celebrating her. And she's been through enormous grief this year. She lost someone very close to her. She had to go through a surgery that didn't go well. And her community just swallowed her up and took care of her and took care of her business. And she had her biggest month ever. And it was like, this is our purpose and our trauma. And none of that made sense. Everyone in her life said, even the realtors, like, this is going to fail. Said it to her face, this is going to fail. And that's when she reached out to me and I was like, okay, the location that you were looking at is going to fall through. The next one you're going to find is going to work out for you. There's going to be some bumps around along the road and you're going to have incurred costs that are not too high, but a little bit more than what you think, but you're going to open and it's going to be hugely successful. And she's like, are you sure? I was like, yes, because she was ready to scrap it if I had said to
Hmm.
her, it's not going to go. And I was like, you cannot put your dreams in the hands of other people. You have this dream on purpose. So go into your dreams. But she was scared, right? Scared that it was going to be a lot of money, that it was going to be a failure. So then I took her on as a business coaching client. And she's like, we're in this for life. She's just seeing so much like growth in herself, right? She's been crying a lot because she's like, I can't believe this is my life now. And it's because she followed her dream that didn't make sense to anyone else, right? So it was exciting, but it was a little scary, right? But it's not as scary as staying put as where she was. So what I like to say is intuition, you can feel it in kind of parts of your body where you're like, oh, that feels tingly. Or when I know I'm supposed to do something, I feel like my heart's exploding, like I've got to do it, right? And then when it's fear, I feel fear in my head. I feel fear in my head. So it's really interesting when you notice. So I'm going to actually challenge you and all your listeners to notice when you feel the tingling nudge of intuition versus where you feel the fear in your body. You might not feel fear in your body the same place every time because your body holds fear in different places for different things, but your intuition will feel different. Maybe it feels light, maybe it feels expansive, maybe it feels tingly in your head, maybe it feels tingly on your heart, right? What does it feel like for you? Because I know everyone listening to this has killer intuition because you wouldn't listen to a podcast about trauma if you didn't have trauma. So you have intuition, you have killer intuition. Now it's about trusting it and building what I like to say is building your book of evidence. So every time your intuition is right or you get a nudge, write it in your book. And if you followed it, see what happened. If you didn't follow it, See what happens. It's all evidence that you are brilliant. So go be brilliant. Build up evidence for your brain and yourself that you do have killer intuition.
That is amazing. And I think everyone that is listening will feel the tingles. They will know when it happens. I know when I get a bit of intuition that is exciting. I like your client. But I get bubbly all over. I get like this energy that comes through me is crazy. Which, like you say, when I was texting you when we were DMing, I'm like, I could feel my body just going, oh my gosh. So I do get it. I do understand that aspect of it. That I think that is a really good place for me to ask you my very important conductor's question. So it's only a conductor's question because obviously we're riding the trauma train. But my question to you is I know that you said that all your abilities came back when you had your second child. So can you tell me if you could speak to the person before that, if you could speak to oh my gosh, I literally forgot how to say your name. Tell.
Sheetal.
My head went then.
Okay.
Sorry. So if you could say to Sheetal exactly what you have hold on. I'm going to mark that because my brain's just gone. Sorry, I've marked it. Okay. So the conductor's question is if you could step on the train with the Sheetal that was there before you had your abilities come back to you, what would you say to her about how her life was going to unfold?
Life is going to be a wild ride, but trust as you let go, everything will fall into place. Everything will fall into place. I notice, especially I'm a Virgo, I can be an overthinker and I grip onto things very tightly sometimes, right? Of like, I know I'm going to do this. I want to do this. I want to have this. I want to impact a million women in my lifetime. And I've realized over the last, especially the last 3 years, is when I let go. And it's almost like you're falling back, but you're being caught and being held, and then you're being lifted without the effort that you were efforting. Right. So it's like the effort of corporate. If you've ever worked in corporate, you'll understand this hard and working, hustling and grinding. Like, God, that's the toxic masculine that I just am always working to let go of. And that when I notice that I'm feeling like it's too tight, I just got to let go and be like, let go and let God, right? Like whatever is meant to be, I still have to effort, but I cannot be so in charge of the results and that everything is always working out for me. So I think that the person, the Sheetal who is in corporate, if I was to go back and say to her, your life is going to change in crazy ways. And it's also going to lift so many people and you, and no one, you will never be worse off. Spirit will always take care. I've never made less in my business than when I made it corporate. Never, not once. I actually make triple what I used to make. And it's because, and my business is growing every year because we're following spirit, we're following our intuition, and we're learning everything is just data and information. It means nothing about you. So to let go of the identity of whatever this means about you and just to take it all in as experience and information and see what happens.
I love that. She would be very proud. And I am so honored that you're here. Right. In light of that, I know I've got all of your links and everything, your beautiful picture. But I would like to share with the listeners that you have been really, really kind and you have shared with us a psychic quiz.
That's right.
Could you just explain a little bit about that and what they can get from it?
So I created this questionnaire. It was like, it's a quiz in essence, where you learn about, answer all these questions. And then at the end, you're going to get a printout or a readout of what your top gifts are on an intuitive level. So there's 5 major clairs and it's introduced. You get all the information on there, but the questionnaire helps you to see what are your strongest gifts and why. And what does that actually express like in your life? I really wanted to give people a tool to help them understand their abilities because sometimes we can feel things or know things. One of the strongest clairs is called claircognizance, where you just know things and you don't know why you know what you know, but you just know it. I like to also call it like it's the subconscious kind of telling you something that doesn't make sense, but you have enough evidence in your subconscious mind to tell you that. So you just know things, but you don't know how you know them. But truly, sometimes you just don't even there's no subconscious reason for it either. Like I'll give you an example. I was doing a tarot reading for a client and I just got this kind of almost vision of step by step by step. And I said, I feel like you graduated from college, and then you had to go out and do like 2 years of experience out in the world. And you got to go back, do your next level, and then you're going to graduate with like much more pay, and you can become the person that like oversees things. And then I kept seeing a safety jacket. And I said, would you understand this to be health and safety? And she's like, yes, that's exactly what I meant. It's like, are you actually at NATE, which is like um, um, tech trades place here that you can go for college? And she's like, oh, have you ever been to NATE? I was like, no, I haven't. I've never even actually looked at the guide or anything. I just could feel like this is what you did 2 steps and you got to go out in the world, got to come back to another 2 steps, and then you're going to be up here and making more money. And she's like, yeah, I don't know how I knew that. It doesn't make any sense. I don't have any experience in the trades. I've never looked at a curriculum about that. I just saw that for her, but then I put that together in a knowing. And so that's claircognizance. So a lot of times people will be like, oh, it's the worst. I want to see things. But seeing isn't actually the strongest clair. It's the cognizance is the strongest because there's no pictures needed and interpretation and all the things. So that's all explained in the questionnaire. And so you go through the questionnaire link. So the link is probably going to be in the show notes, right? Click on there and just start taking the quiz as if you are today, just the way you are today, how you feel about things. And then you take the quiz, and then you'll get an email afterwards with all the data, the information from your quiz. What are your strongest? And then the next email you'll get is all of the clairs and seeing what does that mean for you. So stay on board with it, and you're going to get an education about your intuition, how things work for you, and see where it goes.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah. So all the links will be in the show notes, all the links to your website and your pages and your podcast. And yeah, thank you so much for being on this episode. It's been amazing.
Thank you for asking me and being this beacon of light in the world, Lydia. Like, I can see you writing a book in the future on this. I can also see this podcast growing. And as you step on the stages and start to speak about your experiences and owning who you are authentically, this is going to be just the beginning. So I'm honored to meet you at this stage of your life. And if there's anything I can do anytime, I would love to support you. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me today on Riding the Trauma Train. I'm Lydia, and I feel privileged to share this space with you. No matter where you are on this train right now, whether it's in survival mode, slowly finding your feet in recovery, or maybe it's somewhere in between, remember, you are not alone in what you're feeling, and you do not have to travel this journey by yourself. So if you'd like to continue traveling together, please follow Riding the Trauma Train wherever you're listening so you can join us at the next stop. Until next time, take care.